5 years ago, Oklahoma oil regulators took on a project with an impressive name, the Source of Truth. State officials wanted a comprehensive database capturing all vital information about the more than 11,000 wells that shoot toxic byproduct back underground. I'd spent 18 months reporting on cases where oilfield wastewater blasted out of old wells after being injected at high pressures. Just before the new year, the Source of Truth itself landed in my inbox, and it was explosive. The project was supposed to clean up data riddled with contradictory or missing information. More than 1 in 300 errors were identified. But it also allowed regulators to pinpoint nearly 600 wells that were operating illegally, injecting wastewater above their permitted limits. Excessively high injection pressures and volumes can lead to purges and systemic groundwater pollution. The report also showed that regulators allowed more than 1,400 other older injection wells to operate for decades without any limits whatsoever. The problem dates back to 1981, when Oklahoma applied to take over regulation of oil and gas injection from the EPA. Before the feds would agree, the state had to prove its regulations would protect groundwater as required by the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act. Oklahoma won the EPA's approval, but it did not retroactively apply its new standards, and the EPA never forced it to. 88% of those 2,400 wells are still active today, injecting over 100 million gallons of wastewater last year. Experts say knowing how much, and with how much force, water is being pushed underground is a basic requirement of responsible regulation. One especially bad series of purges occurred in Carter County. Huge volumes of wastewater poured from the ground for months. After the report was completed in 2021, regulators did not act on its findings. They never made the report accessible to the wider agency staff. In the meantime, the number of oilfield purges grew steadily, from about a dozen in 2020 to more than 150 over the next 5 years. A spokesperson said the agency elected not to use this form of data collection, but would not say why. In California, federal officials conducted an audit to protect aquifers, but no state has ever had its oversight revoked. Similar scrutiny is unlikely in Oklahoma under President Trump, whose EPA is radically loosening regulations on industry. State regulators would not know if these wells are contaminating drinking water if they do not investigate them. I asked state regulators whether they would address the wells still injecting under outdated regulations. They did not answer. Help us report on the impact of oilfield waste in Oklahoma. Share your experience at the link below. While the Source of Truth was buried within the agency, the crisis on the ground in Oklahoma was only getting worse. Regulators at the Corporation Commission said they preferred to lead with a handshake instead of a hammer. In 5 years, they didn't find a single company for leaks. Danny Ray, a petroleum engineer who joined to fix the purge problem, resigned in 2023. His message was simple: they don't want to listen. The price of this inaction was paid by Oklahomans whose livelihoods and health were tied to the land. Ranchers reported losing livestock after calves drank from salty, toxic wastewater that had purged into their pastures. In Arcadia, residents Tammy and Chris Borman found their drinking water turned salty and oily, causing sores and health fears. Despite the complaints, state regulators often declined to investigate the source, claiming it was virtually impossible to treat tainted aquifers. Now, Senator Mary Boren is introducing new laws to force companies to test the rock layers and pay for cleanups. But in a state where the economy is built on oil, many fear that speaking out could cost them their jobs. The handshake culture remains, and as we will see in our final segment, the battle for Oklahoma's water is far from over. For more on this investigation, visit ProPublica.org. Join us for Part 3 of Toxic Pressure. In our final segment of Toxic Pressure, we look at the systemic trap that keeps Oklahoma's water at risk, and the fight to break it. Oklahoma law has a unique trap. Once an aquifer is tainted, it's virtually impossible to treat. Regulators use this as a reason not to order cleanups at all. Many citizens are hesitant to speak out. In towns where the local economy is tied to oil, silence is often a survival strategy. But some are finding their voice. Senator Mary Boren's bills aim to mandate investigation and create a fee on wastewater to pay for the damage. The proposed laws would require companies to prove their injection isn't cracking the caprock before they even start. Without these changes, thousands of orphan wells remain open doors for toxic waste to find its way back to the surface. The Oklahoma Corporation Commission maintains it is committed to balanced regulation, but for families with ruined water, the balance feels lost. The battle for Oklahoma's Source of Truth continues as we seek to protect the water that sustains the heart of this state. Read the full investigation and share your story at ProPublica.org and TheFrontier.org. This was Toxic Pressure.